Good day everyone, I'm Momshi Roxanne and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Elements of News, which is part 1 of chapter 2 in the Introduction to Campus Journalism. In this lesson, you will learn about what news is, what are the factors essential to news, what are the elements that make news, what are the different types of news stories? You will be able to identify the different types of news stories according to scope of origin, chronology or sequence, structure, and other forms. Here is the scenario. Fire department trucks one night attracted a throng of spectators, and among them are grade school pupil, high school student, a bystander, and a writer. Let us see how each one of them will tell the story of what they witnessed that night. The grade school pupil wrote, "I saw a fire. It was a big red fire. It burned the house. There were many people around. Some men put water in the fire." The high school student wrote this in his composition. Fearful scarlet tongues arose to the star-studded heavens and licked greedily at the doomed edifice while the brave firefighters risked their all to quench the terrible conflagration. The bystander wrote this to his friend. "I happened to see the most interesting fire in our neighborhood last night. There were many fire trucks called and they were able to extinguish it, but it required much effort. It probably cost the people who owned the house a good deal of money." The date was August 8th. August is the 8th month, so I bet in the lottery 8 and our birthdays at home. The writer, who happened to be there during the fire, wrote this. "A fire of undetermined origin razed to the ground a 3-story apartment of Ishmael Garcia of 164B Recto Street last night. 4 fire companies subdued it within an hour. The damage, estimated at 100,000 pesos, was covered by insurance." Observing the 4 versions, the last one, the one by the writer, was written combining simplicity, vividness, and dignity, achieved clarity and compactness, the outstanding qualities of a newspaper style. Now, what is news? News is the information about recent events or happenings, especially as reported by newspapers, periodicals, radio, or television. It is a report of recent occurrences, information of something that has lately taken place, or of something before unknown. What are the elements of news? The first one is conflict. This may involve physical or mental conflict, man versus man versus animal, man versus nature, or man versus himself. Stories of war, athletic meets, and journalism contests are examples of conflicts. Names. Important names make important news. Also, the more names there are in the story, the better. Significance. Whatever is significant to the life of an individual is interesting to him. That is why newspapers sell like the proverbial hotcakes when news of the increase in the price of oil or of the imminence of war is published. Prominence. Some people are more prominent than others by reasons of wealth, social position, or achievements. The death of the former President Noynoy Aquino has hacked the local and international headlines. Proximity or nearness. This may refer to geographical nearness as well as to nearness of kinship or interest. To a Filipino reader, news about the COVID-19 pandemic in Asia concerns him more than the same kind of pandemic in Europe unless he has relatives in Europe. Immediacy or timeliness. This element emphasizes the newest angle of the story. The more recent the event, the more interesting it is to the reader. Sex. Since the dawn of history, sex has always interested man. Stories of sex are usually related to stories of romance, marriage, divorce, and the varied activities of men with women. However, this is not always the case. The element of sex is involved when a woman, like Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, is elected president of a country, or when a bandit queen robs a bank in a broad daylight. Romance and adventure. Love makes the world go round, so a song says. Hence, stories about love, including adventure, may ignite the taste of the reading public. This is also the reason why showbiz news continuously booms. Oddity or unusualness. This refers to the strange or unnatural events, objects, persons, and places. An odd story is interesting not because of its new value, but because of the human interest side of it. Consider this. A dead man comes to life, finds himself in a coffin, sits up, and dies again of heart attack. Drama. This adds color to the story. The more picturesque the background and the more dramatic the actions are, the more appealing the story is to the reader. The public certainly loves a good show. Anything that moves a reader to tears or to laughter is good news. Number. Lottery numbers, vital statistics, election results, scores in games, casualties, fatalities, price of goods, and ages of women make good news. Animals. Stories of animals, especially those with talents, are good reading matter because of their human interest value. Progress. The onward and forward march of civilization or the progress of a country is chronicled step by step in the newspaper. Emotion. All the other elements of news mentioned above appeal to the emotion. But the term emotion here includes the various human responses such as the innate desire for food, clothing, shelter, the universal interest in children, animals, and nature, and the natural feelings of love, sympathy, and generosity, of fear, hatred, and jealousy. Now, what are the types of news stories? According to scope and origin, a news story can be local, national, foreign, or dateline news. According to structure, straight news is a news that consists of facts given straight without embellishment. Its main aim is to inform. It uses the summary lead and is written using the inverted pyramid structure. News feature. This is featurized news distinguished from a feature article. It is also based on facts, but it entertains more than it informs. It uses the suspended interest structure like the narrative, thus it cannot meet the cut-off test. In writing a news feature, the writer may give his impression, may describe and narrate, but without resorting to biased opinion. According to chronology or sequence, spot news. News that are gathered and reported on the spot. It deals with unscheduled information demanding immediate publication. The reporter himself is an eyewitness to the event that took place. Coverage news. News written from a given beat. Both spot news and coverage news are good examples of first-hand reporting. Follow-up news. It is a sequel to a previous story, having a new lead of its own. It is a second, third, or subsequent chapter of a serial. Advance or anticipated. News published before its occurrence, sometimes called dope or prognostication. The reporter foretells events expected to occur at a definite time in the future. According to treatment. Fact story. This is a plain exposition setting forth a single situation or a series of closely related facts that inform. It is written in the inverted pyramid design. Interview story. A news report written from an interview. Quote story. Speeches, statements, and letters, and to some extent interviews, when reported, are regarded as quote stories. All are based on recorded information either written or spoken and transcribed by the reporter in the form of news. Speech report. A news story usually written from a public address, talks, and speeches. Action story. A narrative of actions involving not mere simple facts but also of dramatic events. Description of persons and events, perhaps testimony of witnesses, as well as explanatory data. Sports games, competitions, accidents, and war reports are examples of action stories. According to content. Police reports. Accident, fire, calamity, crime stories, kidnapping, terrorism, murder, and robbery. Routine story. Celebrations, enrollment, graduation, election stories reported year in and year out. The following are the minor forms of news stories. News bulletin. News brief. News flash. News featurette. Those are the elements of news. I hope you learned something today. Thank you.